Welcome to another episode of Make Mental Health Matter. I am your host, Kelly Melissa Reinhart, and I am super excited for my guest tonight. However, if this happens to be your very first time watching, thank you so much for watching. Make Mental Health Matter I had a little technical glitches before I went live, so apologies, we're a couple minutes late getting started, but that's what happens with live TV is that technical things come up. So, if you happen to be watching for the very first time, Make Mental Health Matter, I bring on guests who are either professionals in the mental health space, advocates of mental health, or those that live with or experience a mental health challenge that really have a story that they can show really that hope, that piece of hope, no matter what you're going through or what you might be challenged with, there is always some level of hope or a glimpse through the clouds. And that's really the whole point of bringing my guests on to the show. So, without further ado, I am going to bring up my guest for this evening. Nikki, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to do this.
Yay, absolutely. And apparently the backgrounds don't want to stick. So
Oh,
we're
I
going to
like the
change it.
background. There you go. All right.
Yay. Yeah. So, Nikki, I am super excited to have you on the show to share a little bit about your organization, Yana, but also your story as to why you founded this nonprofit. So, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your organization, and your story?
Absolutely. So, again, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to share. I'm usually in your seat because I host a podcast, so it's just different, right? So, my name's Nikki. I am a mother of three and a wife of one. And he and I have been together since I was 12 and he was 15. So, we are originally from northern Michigan, where we get lots and lots and lots of snow. And we moved out here in Colorado in 1996. My husband went to the University of Michigan. We're big Wolverines, and he got his degree in aerospace engineering and got a job at Lockheed Martin. So that's what brought us out here to start with. And we love Colorado. All three of our kids two of them are natives. The other one was born in Ohio, but moved here at 1 month. So my husband says it doesn't count. And so he calls him a native too. And so they're 23, 20, and 16 now. So I was a teacher for over 20 years. My bachelor's is in education. My master's is in education. My plan was to get a PhD and teach teachers how to teach. That's what I wanted to do. I had a really rough go finishing my bachelor's degree. And because of the politics, I guess, at the school that I was at, and I was like, yeah, I want to come back here and fix this. Like, this is not how it should be. And if I wasn't so determined to be a teacher, I would have definitely left. Like, it was that bad. So anyway, my plan was to get my PhD and be a professor. And unfortunately, 3 kids later, there was no PhD. But I did teach at Metro State for 2 years, and I loved teaching adult learners. Like, I was like, ooh, this is kind of my sweet spot. But for the 20 years that I was a teacher, I taught everything under the sun. I taught second grade. I was a pre-K teacher. I ran a daycare. I was an assistant principal. You name it, I did it. I taught technology. I subbed for a while. Like, I was all over the place. So it was back in 2016 when I was working in the projects of North Denver. And if you know anything about Denver, it was at Pecos and I-70. So, like, literally in the projects. And it was slowly killing me and my family. Like, it was just too much. I was dealing with social services and the police way more than I was educating. I was an assistant principal at the time. I was in charge of all of the discipline, which, oof, buddy, that was rough. And I would come home, and this was going on for years, and I would come home and say to my kids, you guys have no idea how lucky you are. Like, you live in this charmed life. You don't ever have to worry about food on the table. And I am literally putting boxes of mac and cheese in the backpacks of kids so that they'll eat over the weekend. Because if I don't, I know they won't eat. Like, it was really, really rough. So this goes on for a while. And finally, my daughter, who is now 23 and in law school, at the time she was 16, and she finally says to me, "You know what, Mom? You created this life for us, and now you're mad at us that we have it." And I said, yeah, I think I gotta quit my job." My husband's like, "I think you gotta quit your job." So I quit my job, and that was in May of 2016, and I was like, "I don't know what else to do." Like, I was gonna be a teacher from the time I was in 2nd grade. Like, what now? Like, I don't even know what I'm qualified to do, right? Besides teach. Like, I don't know what to do. So my son was still in elementary school at the time, and, he said, "Will you come to my school?" And I was like, "Ugh, buddy, I do not wanna go back to the elementary classroom. I certainly don't wanna teach in this district. But you know what if I subbed for a while and I was just in the building with you?" And, he's like, "I don't care. I just want you at my school." So I said, "Okay, I'll sub." So I went to the principal. She's like, "Yeah, just come," So I was subbing there a lot. And so I was already a parent there. I'd been a parent there. All 3 of my kids went to that elementary school. It's called Bear Canyon Elementary. It's a great school. And my kids had great experiences, and I was just kind of ingrained into the culture there, right? I knew all the teachers. I mean, every one of them. One of my kids had them, and then I knew a lot of the families because I had grown up. My kids had grown up with all these people, so I was just there, and subbing all the time, trying to decide what I was gonna do, and that's when my whole life took a change. Um, so November 29th of 2016, I got a phone call from the principal, and she said, "Hey, I need you in the building tomorrow." I was like, "Well, that's not how this normally goes." I was like, "Okay, who am I subbing for?" And she's like, "Nah, I'll explain tomorrow." I said, "Okay." So showed up the next morning, and we walked in, and all the county commissioners were there. The whole school district was there. There were all these people. We all walked in and we were like, "What is going on?" And they kind of ushered us all into this room, and they explained to us that Jennifer Labor had picked up her 3-year-old and her 5-year-old from our kids' elementary, from Bear Canyon Elementary, and she shot and killed both of them and herself in the family minivan. And it was behind a Sports Authority, which is now a Hobby Lobby. And most people remember that. They remember whenever I start to tell the story, they're like, "The Sports Authority one." Yep, that's the one. So they said, "We don't know what kids know because it kind of broke on the news late last night. We don't know what the parents know, but we just have 2 subs here who are just here to help. So if you need anything, you need a break, a kid needs a break, a kid needs to go to the counseling center, whatever. Just, we have the whole district counseling center here." So I'm walking around the building and I'm checking in on teachers and checking in on kids and just being a support. And the 6th grade boy walked in from the outside mobile buildings. That's where their classroom was. And he walks in the back door and he's just standing there sobbing. And I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, buddy, what's going on?" He said, "Ethan was my reading buddy. How am I supposed to be okay with the fact that his mom murdered him?" And I said, "I don't have an answer for you, but I'm going to take you to the counseling center where they maybe can help you with that." And as I walked him there, he looked me right in the eye and he says, "How do I know my mom's not going to kill me tonight?" And that rocked my world. Like, I was like, whoa, the ripple effect of this action of this mom, who apparently did not feel like she had any other way out, is going to affect so many people. Like, the ripple effect of this is huge. So I walked him to the counseling center and I went to the bathroom and had a nice cry and pulled myself together. And I thought, I'm going to go hang out with the kindergartners because they'll make me happy, right? So I go into the kindergarten classroom and some of them are sitting at a table. And I walked in, I sat down next to him and I said, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And this sweet little girl says, "Well, our friend Ethan's dead. His brother's dead. His mom's dead, but his dad's not dead. So we're making him these pictures to make him happy." And I thought, wow. Um, I remember my kindergarten year and I remember taking naps and I remember the smell of paste.
Mm.
And now your kindergarten year is going to always be tainted with this, right? And I was like, the chills and the hair stood up on the back of my neck, and I thought, "Holy cow, I don't know how we move forward from this. I don't know how this just becomes the norm," right?
Mm.
So I went home and that was the end of November. So then go through the holidays and I was watching the dad's story. He was on the news a couple times. They did a candlelight vigil. I was like, I just couldn't let go, right? I dreamt about him. I dreamt about her. I dreamt about the kids. I'd never met them. I didn't know them, but it wouldn't leave me, right? It was just ingrained in everything I was doing. I was like, but what if I would have connected with her? What if I could have been her friend? All of these different things. So that happens. And then we get through the holidays. And then in February of 2017, a second mom in Highlands Ranch took the life of her 10-year-old daughter and herself. And she did this in the ex-husband's basement and left a note saying, I did it here so you'd have to find us. So there was some definite domestic issues there. However, after reaching out to her family and reaching out to Jennifer's husband, I had dinner with him about 4 months after she did it. And he sat me down and he told me everything. What I came to find out was that both of them had undiagnosed, untreated postpartum depression. Now, Jennifer had a 3 and a 5-year-old, and the other woman had a 10-year-old. And you would think, well, that can't be postpartum. Like that's so there's too much time. But what happens is when you have that kind of issue and it's not taken care of, it festers in other ways, right? And it creates other mental health issues that aren't taken care of. So they did not get the support they needed from day one. Neither of them were Colorado natives. They came from other states. They didn't have their people. They didn't have connections. And they didn't have a village that helped them with mothering, right? So after that one, I literally threw my hands in the air and I was like, that's it. I'm not going to open the news anymore and watch this happen again. I'm not doing this. So what are we going to do about that? So I went to social media and I put it out on my Facebook page and I said, I don't know about you guys, but I can't sit here and watch this anymore. I can't open the news and watch this. So what are we going to do? And so it just kind of started this organic conversation. And it started, hey, what if we started a nonprofit? What if we made a support group? What if? Kelli, I didn't even know what a nonprofit was. I was like, is that a foundation? Is that a charity? Is that like, what does that even mean? I didn't even know. So a friend of mine was opening an all women's gym and in Highlands Ranch called Burn Boot Camp. And she's like, hey, why don't we partner? I was like, great. What's that mean? She's like, well, when I'm not using the gym, you can use it. If you help me build a childcare room. I was like, oh, I got you. So I put it out on all my social medias and I said, we are going to furnish a childcare room. Who's got couches? Who's got tables? Who's got chairs? Who's got baby stuff? We had the most amazing 1,500 square foot childcare space you've ever seen, all by donations. We had a big screen TV. We had basketball hoops. We had all the video gaming you could want, 3 couches, an art center, a toddler center, an infant center. Like it was amazing. So we built this for her in 3 weeks. And then she opened her doors. And at her grand opening, she's like, you need to speak. And I was like, Dina, I don't even know what the heck I'm doing. She's like, just come speak. So I got up in front of all these people and I said, listen, I don't know about you guys, but I can't let this just go. I can't. My heart won't let me. So let's do something. So it kind of created this nonprofit. And I said, if you know anything about nonprofits, you know anything about mental health, you know anything about postpartum depression, you know anything about anything, come talk to me. I can use all the help I can get. So this woman walks up to me at this event and she goes, so have you done the paperwork for the 501c3 yet? And I was like, funny you should say that. I said, just yesterday, I sat down with the book, Nonprofits for Dummies. And after 3 hours, I was in tears. And my husband came in and said, what's the matter? And I said, I don't even know what step 1 is. I have a master's degree and I can't tell you what step 1 is. And I don't know what to do. And he said, honey, put that book aside and go help moms. Just go do it. It'll come. That part of it'll come. Just go. And I said, okay, but I don't even know. He's like, doesn't matter. Your heart is in it. Go do it. So she's like, yep, he's right. In fact, throw the book in the trash because I'm going to hand you my nonprofit. And I said, I'm sorry. What was that? And she said, I have a 10-year-old nonprofit that's been sitting dormant for 2 years. It did great work for 8 years. And now it's sitting there. We've done the taxes for the last 2 years. And I said to my husband last week, we need to find somebody who wants to do good in the world and hand them this. And you got up and spoke. So I guess it's yours. And I said, is that how it works? Can you do that? She's like, I don't know. Let's go figure it out. Sure enough, we went to the IRS. We went to the Secretary of State. You changed the name. You changed the address. You changed the mission just a little. And the nonprofit was mine. And then she said, oh, and by the way, I got $1,500 in the bank. That's yours too. Okay. So literally within a month, we had a location, a 501c3, and $1,500. And I still didn't know what I was doing. So it's like I met with a bunch of other nonprofit leaders and said, thoughts? Like, help me out here. And so what we did was we created a support system that was much like the AA system. So we would have gatherings and play dates for the moms to come together. We put all the couches in a circle, the kids all played, and we just let the moms be together. We talked about things that nobody allows them to talk about, and we just let them create their community. And then every mom is offered a support person, and a support person is just another mom who can say, I've been there. I've locked myself in the bathroom and cried too. And then we're a clearinghouse of resources. So mom needs something, we help them find it. So that was our original structure. And that's how we started back in April of 2017. And that went great for a long, long time. And we had lots of moms of preschoolers. Just so happened they were all moms of preschoolers at the same time. So that was awesome because they were all going through the same thing and needing the same support. So that was great. So it was really great. And we were matching moms all the time with support moms. That was really great. We have moms who credit us with saving their lives. We have moms that credit us with changing their lives totally. Even the support moms were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Somebody cares what I have to say again. This is so awesome. My kids are all out of the house, but I get to give my wisdom to somebody else. So it was really great. And then the pandemic hit. And then we were like, okay, we can't do this in-person gathering anymore because it's, against the law. So now what, right? And so we were still matching moms. But during the pandemic, I did a bunch of research on postpartum depression. I wrote a book and I got certified in maternal mental health. And I was like, we are missing the boat in this country. I did a bunch of research on what other countries do for their moms and was blown away that in Canada, when you have a baby, they send you a doula to your house to do your laundry and help you. Like, just because you had a baby. It's just part of their health care. In Europe, you get this giant box. Oh my gosh, it's the coolest box, and it has everything you would ever get at a baby shower, plus some. And it's just this welcome home. Congratulations, mom. Let's help you. There's so many supports. They get time off, paid time off. I mean, there's just so many. And I looked around at the United States and was like, yeah, okay. We don't even make a phone call. We don't even check on mom. We just hand them this baby and say, good luck. And we send them out the door. And then we wonder why the mental health of our country is the worst in the world. And we think it's because we don't support the people who make the people. If you don't support the people who are creating families, what chance do we have? Right? We aren't supporting people from the beginning of families being made. We have got to change that. So I created a new program over the pandemic called Strong Mamas Thriving Babies. And this is a hospital program where every mom who gives birth at one of our hospitals gets a full year of wraparound support. So this wraparound support gives moms an app that they can communicate. It has in-person gatherings for them to come back and visit with all the other moms who give birth in the same month. And they get phone calls at 3, 6, 9, and 12 months postpartum. All in a year, they are getting supported in 3 different modalities that will totally change mental health and give them the support they deserve. We finally, after 4 years of this, finally have a signed contract with UC Health Highlands Ranch, which is so exciting and so big for us. And we are launching next Tuesday, January 30th, 2024, with our very first Visits with Mom in hospitals. So I talk a lot. That was like 20 minutes and my elevator speech, like we're on the top level of heaven by now. But that's who I am. That's why I started this. That's where we're at. And that's where we're going.
No, that's amazing. And thank you for sharing all of that. I know some of your story, but I don't know all of your story. And it's so not, well, it's interesting how you went from education into the nonprofit. And also, I remember that story about the first mom, right? I remember hearing about it and I was like, oh my gosh, but hearing you say and talk about how the school was affected and how they actually told all the students what happened specifically, and really that ripple effect of how it is going to show up in these kids' lives, and probably still has up until this day, right?
Yep.
And hearing that one child ask if their mother is going to kill them, like it is gut wrenching to just think about how, as a mother, you get to the point that that's what your choice is first and foremost. But also, I from the flip side, as a mother and as somebody who had, with at least my last child, a lot of trauma in while I was pregnant and then after I was pregnant. And I can see how you can get into those spaces if
Mm-hmm.
you don't find your community, if you
Yep.
don't find those people that are going to support you. And I talk about it. I mean, after my sister passed, I was just going. Like that's how I coped
Yep.
with her death. And then also my son had seizures and I figured out that I was living in fear and I would go 0 to red in 2.5 seconds. I do talk about it now that I was like borderline child abuse with my son because I was so angry with the world and angry with how things were going. And then it wasn't until I found a community that lifted me up that really helped me figure out that it was fear that was like ruling my life. And ultimately I was pushing my child away. I was pushing every single person away from me. And that was, I mean, my son was about a year and a half old when my sister passed. And it took a whole year almost for me to get out of what I call the fog.
Yeah.
And so it's, I think, I mean, and that's when you and I first connected. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so needed.
Yes.
And
Yes.
something that we don't talk about enough. And I
Yep.
know that my sister is well, she was a doula originally, and now she is an IBCLC. So she helps with breastfeeding. And these are conversations that she has all the time. She actually was a guest on my show, and we talked about postpartum mental health. And it just is not that conversation that we're having. So I love that you're able to come on and share this experience and this information that, hey, let's have this conversation because it needs to happen.
Well, and a lot of it too comes back to when I was growing up, and I'm old, but I'm not that old. When I was growing up, my dad's whole family was all in the same town, right? We lived in northern Michigan. His three siblings, so the four of them plus grandma, all lived within 5 miles of each other, right? That's how they parented with each other. All of us cousins grew up together. The sisters all hung out together, like all of these things. That doesn't happen, especially in Colorado, because nobody can afford to live here and bring their whole families. So that doesn't happen anymore. That is very rare that you find families who live in the same towns and all work together to have kids of around the same ages anymore. And so, and that's how it used to be, like way back in the hunters and gatherers. Think of it like way back in the caveman days, right? There was a village that all took care of each other's kids. They just did. It wasn't like, whose kid is this? It didn't matter. If they needed food, they got food. And moms would be breastfeeding each other's kid, other people's kids. That's just how we worked. And now we parent in silos. We all parent with our doors closed and our garages closed, and we're all in these houses by ourselves going crazy because we just need that interaction with each other and just to feel normal. Like, there's so many thoughts and feelings that happen after giving birth because of, when you actually look at the physiology of labor and birth and what happens to your body and the chemicals and the estrogen and the testosterone and the progesterone, and when you look at all of that and then the surge of all of that happens, and then if you're having a baby of the opposite gender, oh, guess what, you're getting surges of different things. All of these things don't compute that we just do this by ourselves. Like, it doesn't even make sense. And so why we went from having villages of people and supporting one another and doing it in villages to doing it in silos is beyond me, but we're going to change that. And we are like, we're done with that. That's ridiculous. We should not have to do that. And we don't have to do that. It's not brain surgery. It's pretty damn simple. We created the whole process. And we just have to get the people to understand the need for it. And we're getting there. I will tell you, like, we haven't even piloted our program, and we have two other systems who are ready to expand our program. We have one system who has 51 hospitals nationwide, and they're like, we would like it for our whole. I'm like, whoa. Okay, hang on. Just give me a minute. So we pilot on next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow. And then we will be able to give you all the data and prove to you this works and work out all the kinks and figure out all the systems that we've built. But yeah, We believe that once we start really truly giving moms the support they deserve, the mental health of our country is going to positively be impacted, right? We're taking that negative ripple effect and turning it into a positive ripple effect of generational change. We are making generational change by supporting moms the way they deserve. And I will tell you, I did meet, like I said, I met with the dad, Mr. Labor, after Jennifer had done what she did. And he did tell me a lot of different things that she had said and done, and some things that had happened in her life. But one of the things she did was in the note she left behind. She said, I feel like I'm the only person who can mother these boys the way they deserve to be mothered. So I'm going to take them with me. And there's this weird way that I think I have a lot of moms say, I get that. I'm not going to do it, but I get it. And I will say a lot of people were very, very, concerned about the boys and how it all went down. And I will tell you that she did drug them before she shot them. So she had given them oxycodone in cough syrup. So they were both completely out. They were totally comatose. In fact, they came back from doing their autopsies and they said that they had so much in their systems that that actually would have killed them itself. That's how much she gave them. So the good news is they went to sleep and they didn't wake up and they didn't see their mom go through this. The bad news is obviously that they're not here and that she did do this, but we're taking this horrible, horrible tragedy and we are saying never again. How do we change that? We give moms what they deserve.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk more about this. We're going to go to a quick sponsored break, but once we get back, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, and especially the program that you are rolling out, and then also more about nonprofits. So
Yes.
we'll be right back after this quick sponsored break.
Hi there, I'm Dawn Livingston, your host on the Transcend and Succeed show. Join me Fridays at 2 p.m. Central for limitless inspiration and ways to help you transcend your limitations. Tune into the Achieve TV network and the Voyage to Vitality channel. Transcend and Succeed show, right here on A360 TV.
And like that, we're back.
Yay!
Yay! If you happen to just be joining us, thank you so much for tuning in to the Make Mental Health Matter show. My backgrounds are not stained and they were so cool. All right, sorry. I'm like, not about perfection, but it was,
Yep.
I like the background. If you happen to just be joining, my guest is Nikki Brooker. She is telling us all about her story, why she started YANA, mother, or You Are Not Alone, mother to mother, or
Mom to mom.
Mom to mom. Okay.
Yep.
I was like, I think I get that. I always say mama to mama or mother to mother.
Well, it's because we use so many different words, so it's okay. You're forgiven.
Yeah, right. That's like everybody says BBC or BCC, or they can't quite get mine right. So,
Yep.
It happens.
I get it.
But really the point of what I was saying is that we really sharing the experience as to why she started YANA. And the reason was because there are too many mothers that are taking their own life and their children's life, especially in Colorado. And what has been found is that there's not community behind women in general, really, as we give birth. And really, it takes a village. Like I've heard that so many times. And when I had my son, I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I was like, yeah, it takes a freaking village. I mean,
Sure does.
luckily I had my oldest sister who I said is an IBCLC, and she helped me through that process of just breastfeeding in general. And then my other sister, she was able to really help me. She was also in the medical field, CPR instructor, and they were both really big guides throughout when I had my son. And I mean, I was older when I was like 34, 35 when I had my son. And it was just like, I'm like, wow, it makes a difference. And I reflect back to like when you were talking, I reflect back to when I was in psychology, and it was abnormal psychology class, and we had a mother that came in that she calls it the incident, but ultimately she took the lives of her two kids and she went into psychosis. It wasn't postpartum depression, but she went into psychosis, and she had postpartum with both of them, and it was really, really severe with the very first. They said that they weren't going to have more kids. It became 5 years later, and they're like, well, maybe we can try. The doctor said that they would monitor her. She ended up she had postpartum depression, went in and out of 3 different facilities. This was in Colorado also. Went in and out of 3 different facilities, and then ultimately ended up, it was the incident, took both of her kids' lives. And she said, she's like, I just wanted to sleep, and I just wanted them to sleep. And she doesn't remember any of it. And they realized that not connecting those dots of those 3 times that she went in and out of mental health facilities when right after her last one was born, it really created or shifted into psychosis. And I think that's another thing that we don't talk about
Yep,
at all.
100%. And that's exactly what they attribute, both of the other moms who, we started Yana from, that they both went into psychosis. And there's a fine line between like depression and isolation and feeling inadequate and that I don't know what I'm doing and I don't have the support, to going to that extreme, right? But it can be a very fine line that you're straddling, that you're just not okay, but you don't know what's wrong. And when I met with the husband, I said to him, "Is there any hindsight in this for you? Like, is there any like, oh my gosh, yes, that I should have noticed that?" He was like, "No, absolutely none." She went that morning and bought the gun and walked into the elementary school, picked up the kids early from school, and went and like literally there was no. And why behind sports authority? No reason. Like, it is a psychosis. There a lot of times, not always, but it can be a psychosis that they literally have no idea what they're doing. And we there's this there's an actual diagnosis of no sleep psychosis.
Mhm.
And so it's a lack of sleep, right? And if you think about when you don't get good sleep just in a normal everyday, right? What happens to you? Well, you start feeling foggy, or you start slurring. You can even slur your words. You can look like you're drunk. Like, there's so many things that happen to you when you don't get good REM sleep. And when this goes on and every day and it builds and it manifests and it manifests and it manifests, and then it turns into this thing that you don't even recognize, right? Or the people who love you don't even recognize. And you do something that you would never have done. Like that idea, the idea. Now, she did have other mental health instances before she had kids. So she did have other suicidal ideation before she had children, but she was stable when she got pregnant, and they thought that things were okay. And I said to him, I said, "Do you think," this was like 4 months after this all happened. So it was really, really fresh, right? So I don't know that he had a lot of time for the forethought and to think back. But I said to him at that time, I said, "Did you ever think this could happen to you?" And he was like, "Never, million years could you have told me she was going to do something like this. Like, she's not that person. She was not that person." So when it did happen, it was a huge slap in the face that, wow, I apparently either didn't know my wife as well as I thought I did, or she just went psychotic. And I was like, I mean, I can't tell you because but it sure seems like she went psychotic. And you're right. That it was not talked about. It's not talked about, and it needs to be.
Yeah. And I think and you had mentioned that the second was a mother who had a 10-year-old, and
Mhm.
I know that like a lot of times, especially with postpartum depression, is that you detach. And a
Mhm.
lot of times, I mean, 0 to 5 is really that attachment time that you need. I mean, really 0 to 2 years old is when you need that attachment with your baby, with yourself. And if you lose that attachment, then you really go throughout life feeling very detached from whether it's yourself or your child. And there's got to be some, I'm sure there's some science behind that too, is that when you go that long, and like you said, I mean, 10 years later, right?
Yep.
It was never diagnosed,
Yep.
and they never got the help that they needed back at that time. So therefore, it just continued without anybody even knowing.
Yep. And her family came back and said that, and they said, "Oh, we could have told you years ago she had postpartum depression, but she never had it taken care of." And the family was in California, and she was here, so they're not here to support her. Went through a pretty nasty divorce, so then you add that heartbreak onto it too. Was living on her own. I had heard she had just lost her job. I don't know for sure. But that little girl, that 10-year-old, was best friends with my girlfriend's daughter. So that's how I was weirdly connected to that one. And so then I saw it from this sweet little 10-year-old who'd I'd known her whole life going, okay, so I thought, I considered her like a second mom. I spent the night at her house. She killed my best friend. How am I supposed to ever trust anybody ever again? Right? Like, how do I just move on from that? Right. So then I watched it from that side of it going, oh my gosh, like, again, the ripple effect of this. And I just happened to be connected to both of these women. They both were in groups that were supposed to be supporting them. Neither of them felt supported by those groups. And so that was another issue too, is that they never really found the right place. They didn't find the right people. So yeah, it's something we need to talk about more, but there's also solutions out there, right? Not that we are ever going to, you and I both are fighting the good fight to save everybody, right? We want to save the world. I love the thing that you had up, the commercial break, that you just want to save the world, even if it's one person at a time. And I feel this, and that's our tagline. Our tagline is saving the world one mama at a time. And I really truly believe that what we're doing and the systems that we are creating and the supports that we have, like, I think there's no doubt that we are going to see a positive effect of mental health in whole communities, right? In moms, in kids. Like, when moms are healthier, kids are healthier. You know that saying, when mama ain't happy, nobody's happy? That's a thing, right? And if we don't stop and give moms the support they deserve, there's no shot at that. Like, they've got to have this community, and we've got to create it. And unfortunately, our world is a different world that we live in, right? It's funny because I talk to some older moms, and they're like, "Oh, I don't understand. I mothered, my mother mothered. Like, we just did it." And I'm like, "Yeah, did you mother in 2024?
Yeah.
Because 2024 is a whole nother ballgame, my friends. Did you have social media? Did you have cell phones? You had none of this, right? So it's a completely different world, and we have got to change with the world as it goes."
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it is. It's a whole new world that I don't think we even know how to navigate it fully yet. But that's such a great point of we've got to be able to change and adapt. And the saying didn't just magically happen that it takes a village, right? Like,
Right.
we all know, and I was raised in a small town in Utah, and it was the same, right? Like what you were talking about earlier is that there were families all over. Like, we used to go over to a friend's house across the street, all over the place, and it didn't matter if it was your kid or not, right? Like, they jumped in and helped each other. It was a much, I feel like, a much safer world at that time.
Uh-huh.
But also, that's one of those things that we have to change and we have to adapt. And that's what I love about your wraparound support. And I know that you can give people all the tools, all the resources that they could potentially need, but sometimes it's hard to get them to actually hold on to it or actually utilize it.
Yeah.
Is there something, and I know you have said this before in conversations with you and I talking, is that it has to be Yana led, right? It has to be those people that are in your circle that are leading the charge. It can't be something that you're just going in and sending it out to like the world,
Right.
because we have to make sure that it's effective. And
Right.
that's the biggest thing that I love that you talked about with the program that you're launching.
Yeah. So one of the things about our program is that it is 100% peer led. Okay. So, and we that is on purpose. We have had many conversations. I have a board member who's a social worker, and we've had many conversations where it was like, well, maybe we need to make this a little more clinical. And I'm like, as soon as you make this clinical, unfortunately, because of the stigma of asking for help and because of the stigma of, but if something's wrong with me, you might take my kid away. We can't make it clinical. It has to be peer led. And so our entire program, everything about our Strong Mamas program is all about being peer led, meaning just like in an AA meeting, right? So there's two different designations. This is such an interesting thing that I just learned this year. So I went to go get trained to be a peer specialist. So there's this new designation that's within the last 5 years that they've created that you can get a certification and you can be a peer or a peer specialist. Okay, great. I want to be a peer specialist. That sounds perfect. So I went to go get the training and they said, great. Okay, so which category do you fit in? And I said, well, what do you mean? And they said, well, do you have a mental health issue, challenge, or do you have a substance abuse challenge? I said, neither. And they said, oh, sorry, you can't do the training. You can't be a peer specialist. And I said, what? I'm confused. And they said, yeah, I said, you're turning me away? And they said, unless you can tell me you have a mental health challenge or a substance abuse challenge, yeah, we're turning you away. And I said, okay, help me out here. I don't understand. And she said, I'll give you an example of why this is important. If you go to an AA meeting or an NA meeting or an Al Anon meeting or any of those support groups, and you walk in and you find out that the leader doesn't have an alcohol problem, a narcotic problem, or isn't a family member of somebody who has one of those in the Al-Anon program, is there any validity to that program? No. That's what you went there for. You went there to be with peers who have been there and they get you. So now you're going to go get certified as somebody who is going to work with, somebody who has an alcohol problem, but you don't have an alcohol problem, that you have no validity. Like that's not going to work. And I was like, holy cow, you're right. Like you're right. And I said, so what do you suggest I do? Because I told them the program, I told them what we're doing. I told them that we're going to be peer specialists for moms. She's like, go create your own training. So we did. So we created our own peer mom specialist training so that it is all about being moms. It's all about being empathetic listeners. It's all about what are the red flags you should be listening to. It's all about how can you best support another mom. And we have that training for our callers who are going to do the volunteer calling, which is at 3, 6, 9, and 12 months postpartum. After you have a baby, you get a phone call from a peer mom who says, how are you? I am a mom. I am not a mental health specialist. I'm here to talk to you. You don't put a police officer in an AA meeting for a reason. You don't put a mental health specialist in one of our groups because it's all about peers, right? I am here as a mom first, 100%. And being a mom is the hardest job on the planet. No one will deny that. And no mom will deny that. Let's say that. It is the hardest job on the planet. And until we give moms the support they deserve, we have no chance. So our peer designed program is all about supporting each other. And so that comes in an app so that they can connect with each other, and we will be loosely monitoring that and checking in on that. But all the moms can chat with one another. They each have their own profile. There's a calendar of events so they can have online, or we can plan in-person gatherings. Then there's convos, kind of like Slack channels, and they can talk about anything they want to talk about. They can talk about breast versus bottle. They can talk about co-sleeping versus crib sleeping, whatever. Anybody can make a convo. We can make convos. Every mom who joins the app is automatically put in a specific convo of all the moms who gave birth in that same month. So all the January mamas are in a group, and all the February mamas are in a group. But then you're also in a group with all these other moms who have given birth throughout the year as well. So you're getting each other's expertise. You're getting each other's thoughts and opinions. And just, I don't know how to handle this. What are your thoughts? What are you guys doing about this? This came up. Does anybody have this situation? It's just an online. And then if you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning feeding baby, and you get on your app and go, oh, look, Kelly's on too. How are you? Oh my gosh, are you, what are you feeding too? Just feeling less alone. That's what it's all about, is you are not alone. Like, you don't have to be. We're here for you, right? And then they get to come back and be in-person gatherings with all the other moms who give birth in the same month that they give birth. So all the January mamas come back in February, the February mamas come back in March, and they get to sit down in a big open room and just be. They get to be moms, and they get to say all the things that no one lets them say. Like, this sucks, or I'm sick and tired of smelling like puke, or I love everything about this except for breastfeeding is horrendous for me, right? Like, just say what's going on, and it's okay to feel that way, and it's okay to be frustrated, and it's okay to be sad, and it's okay to have all of these emotions, and love this baby more than anything you ever thought you could love. Has nothing to do with love. Nothing. It has to do with what's happening to our bodies, what's happening to our hearts, what's happening to our minds in this time with our hormones surging and all of the things. You just need to feel like you're not losing it. Like, you're not crazy. You are not crazy. This is normal. It is okay to feel all of these things you're feeling. And I'm not here to take your kids away from you. I already did that. I already did my mothering with babies. I don't want to do it again. I want to be a grandma and hold them and send them home. But I certainly do not want anybody to be taking your babies away. You are the best people to be their moms. I just want you to be the best mom you can be. And how can we do that? By giving you each other.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I'm like, oh, I wish I had that.
Right? Can I just tell you, every single time I tell this story to any mom, they're like, where were you when I was like, dude, I needed it too. We moved across the country. So we lived in Colorado. We had 2 kids. We had no friends that had kids. We were the only ones in our friend groups. We had nobody who had kids. And I was like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. And my husband was like, well, what if we moved closer to family? What if we were around family? And I was like, okay, that sounds like a great idea. So we love Colorado so much that we were like, okay, we're not leaving Colorado unless we are moving to where our family is. Well, all of our family, both of sides, we're still in Michigan. So we were like, okay, we're moving to Michigan. And somehow we ended up in Cleveland, Ohio. And to this day, I still like, I don't even understand what happened. But when we moved to Cleveland, we didn't get to see our family any more than we did when we lived in Colorado, to be totally honest with you. However, it's a way different situation there, right? You can have a 1-income family. And we moved in, we went and looked at this house. I'll never forget it. We looked in this house and we walked around, and I was like, we can't afford this. I mean, we had just come from Colorado, right? And it's got like stone floors and this beautiful kitchen. And it was like 3-star. It was a gorgeous, gorgeous house. And my husband was like, not only can we afford this, you can stay home. And I was like, what? Well, everybody in this town was a stay-at-home mom. Everybody. It's called Avon, Ohio. It was a great little town. Everybody's a stay-at-home mom. They had a preschool parents club with over 200 members in this preschool parents club. And there was a calendar of events. You could do something every single day with a different group of people. You go to the zoo this day, and the library this way, and the park this day. I mean, it was just like, I hit the lottery, and I found my people, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. Now, the sun doesn't come up for 8 months out of the year, because it's the Midwest. You can't ski there. My husband was very sad about that. We bought a boat. We're like, oh, we'll be boaters. Okay, you're not boaters on Lake Erie. It's like the ocean. So that didn't work. Like, everything we tried to be part of that culture didn't really work for us, except for the mom part. Like I was like, these are my people, right? We were there for 3.5 years, and that's all my husband could take. And the story about that is my husband went to Michigan. He's a Wolverine. We're living in Ohio State territory. Now we're not in Columbus, but we're in the state. And he couldn't fly his flag, and he couldn't be a proud Michigan guy. So we're at a party, and we had just had our third baby. We had our son, and friends of ours were there, and they were all Ohio State fans. And our friend looked down at the carrier and said, now you got yourself a little Buckeye. And my husband looked at me and said, put the house on the market. We're out of here. And I was like, oh, okay. And the next morning he was like, so I wasn't kidding. Like, we're not staying. And I was like, oh, and 30 days later, we were back in Colorado. That was all it took, right?
Wow.
So yeah, 3.5 years was all he could take. But it was great for me as a mom because I bloomed where, it was great. But then we moved here. We moved to a great cul-de-sac with 24 kids on the cul-de-sac.
Wow.
And it was amazing, right? So things worked out just fine for us. But I will tell you, I needed Yana. I needed strong mamas, thriving babies, and I didn't have it. And so I said, all right, we're going to make it for my kids to have and their kids to have. And every mom deserves this.
Heck yeah. No, I think that's amazing. And it's just like, it's so needed. It also opens up that conversation of like, you can share whatever it is that's going on, because I know too many of my friends and other people that are like, well, I probably shouldn't say this, but it's always that statement. And it's just something that we need to be able to talk about, and having the wraparound support for the extended period of time. And then they can come back and potentially be part of the peer, peer group.
And then they can be the support, right? That's what it's all about. It's like putting them back into the system in a positive way.
Yeah. And that, I think it's just incredible. And I think that it's already starting to make waves, and I'm so excited for you to like fully launch this. And you got the funding and the backing of the hospitals, which is incredible. And if people want to find you and get involved, how can they do that?
So our website is YANAMOM.com. So YANAMOM.com. You can find us there. You can reach out there. You can donate there if it speaks to you. But like Kelli said, we did get grant funding to fund us through December 31st of 2024. So this whole year we are funded to pilot this program thanks to Douglas County and the ARPA funds. So we're very, very thankful for that opportunity. But 2025, January 1, we got to start all over. We're trying to figure out how we're going to keep this going. So we're hoping, our contracts with the hospitals, that works out. And but we're always looking for volunteers. We're looking for volunteer moms who want to be a support mom to another mom. That's a huge program. And then our other Strong Mamas program, the hospital program, we're going to start really looking for volunteer moms who want to do calls and just want to call and check in on a mom. We give you the training. We give you everything you need. It's just a time where you can just sit down maybe for an hour once a month and make some phone calls and just check on some moms for us. So we are always looking for volunteers, and there's a spot on our website. You can do that as well. So yanamom.com. Thank you for putting the QR code up there. That's perfect. So yeah, we would love to hear from you.
Awesome. Well, any final words that you would like to share?
Just thank you. Thank you for what you're doing, Kelli. I know you started this out of a tragedy, and I know that it spoke to you in so many ways. And I know how much work this is, and trust me, I'm with you. And I just want to say thank you for all that you do for mental health and for suicide prevention and education, and getting people to understand that they are not alone, and that you're making waves and you're doing great things. So thank you for all that you do. And for all your listeners out there, thanks for listening. And we hope to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so glad
Kelli.
you were able to come on.
Me too. Thanks so much.
Ariel, oh my gosh, that was amazing.
Awesome.
Another awesome on Make Mental Health Matter. If you happen to be watching for the first time, again, make sure that you put us into your favorites, your watch list, your want to watch later list, whatever that happens to be. And that way you don't miss another episode, because you don't want to miss another incredible guest like Nikki. And if you need Yana's support, please go find them. I'm going to drop the link one more time. And I know if you reach out to me, I can get you connected to her because I know her. So we're in this little group together. And I think just all the nonprofits being able to come together, share what they do is so important because you never know when somebody is going to need support, especially as a new mom or an older mom or a had many kids mom. We all need help at some point in time, and being able to have that right away is so very important. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure you come back next Monday and I will have another amazing guest. But until then, have a wonderful evening.